How can you fight a people who look down the barrel of a gun and see paradise? That's the problem. When you point a gun at them, what they see is what they've been waiting for. The entrance into an eternity of lust-filled gratification with every desire that they've been denied on this earth now available to them with full, unrestrained, unlimited access.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the It Stands Written podcast. I am joined here with Just Justin today, and we are continuing in our series on Islam and its historical origins. Last time we looked at the different doctrines. Those included their doctrine of God, angels, their holy books, prophets, and a future judgment, also focusing on the 5 different pillars that increases the Muslim's chance of salvation, those including confession, prayers, fasting, alms, and pilgrimage. Today, we're jumping into jihad in the Islam religion. Justin, I'll give it to you. What is jihad?
Jihad is holy war, and it really is the only way that any Muslim has a total assurance of salvation. They might participate in those other pillars of Islam, but there's no guarantee because salvation is really up to you. There's no guarantee for a Muslim that he'll get into heaven unless he engages in jihad. Now, there's 2 kinds of holy war, 2 kinds of jihad. There's the lesser kind of jihad, which is spreading Islam through violence and war. And then there's what they call the greater jihad. And this will really help you understand how when you talk to a Muslim, they view jihad. Many Muslims don't look at jihad with the more base form of violence, though that's more true to the Quran and the intentions of Muhammad. Most Muslims look at jihad in terms of self-mastery, overcoming evil, and then spreading Islam with the pen. This is where they engage in apologetics. This is where they would argue in defense of their faith. And there's many who would say that Islam's a peaceful religion, and that's why. And those who look at the violent, vocal, and visible form of jihad as a lesser form of jihad. But really, the Quran will speak for itself. That's what we wanted to do. And this is for those who think that Islam is a peaceful religion. If you think that, you don't believe what the Quran teaches. The Quran is unambiguous about that. Listen to what it says in chapter 8, for example, verse 39. It says, "Fight them until there is no more rebellion, and religion is all for Allah." That's really unmistakable and clear. That you are to spread the theocratic rule of Allah across the world until all submit to Allah through whatever means necessary. And of course, the means that is invoked in that chapter is fighting. Now, you go on later in the same chapter, and in chapter 8, we'll have a lot of these things. He says, "Against them, make ready your strength to the utmost of your power, including steeds of war." So, of course, that would be horses in Muhammad's day, "to strike terror into the enemies of Allah and your enemies." So terrorists are defined by those who provoke through their actions the spread of terror. That's what terrorism is. Terrorism is the fundamental, foundational understanding of how Islam is meant to spread so that everyone would be in submission to, and of course, Islam means submission, spreading terror into the enemies of Allah, who they say are our enemies. Now, chapter 3 of the Quran, verse 151, says this, "We will cast terror into the hearts of those who disbelieve for what they have associated with Allah, of which he has not sent down authority. And their refuge will be the fire, and wretched is the residence of wrongdoers." So this isn't really peace talk. This isn't a conciliatory, reasonable group of people, at least those who adhere to this. This book is filled with hate and hostility.
Yeah.
So keep going. I mean, there's other chapters. I know you have some chapters even in front of you open. Why don't you read what it says in chapter 2?
Yeah, chapter 2 in verse 2:16, it says, "Fighting has been enjoined upon you while it is hateful to you. But perhaps you hate a thing and it is good for you, and perhaps you love a thing and it is bad for you. And Allah knows while you know not."
So you don't know what's good or bad. Fighting is good.
Right.
And if it feels counterintuitive, if it feels wrong to you, you're wrong.
Right.
Because Allah has told you what to do.
Yeah. Another one in chapter 9, verse 5, it says, And when the sacred months have passed, then kill the polytheists meaning believe in multiple gods.
Well, this is actually a reference to Christians because
really?
they believe in the Trinity.
Oh, the Trinity.
Yeah,
okay.
right.
Yeah.
They call it polytheism
Right.
because there's no division within the united Allah.
Got it. Okay. So then kill the polytheists wherever you find them, and capture them and besiege them, and sit and wait for them at every place of ambush. But if they should repent, establish prayer, and give zakah, let them go on their way. Indeed, Allah is forgiving and merciful.
So you see this, right? If you find a Christian, what you're to do is lie in wait for them at every place of ambush, besiege them, capture them, call them to repent, and call them to yield in submission to Allah. And if they don't, kill them. If they do, realize that Allah will forgive them. That's their one moment. So repent with the sword at your neck.
Yeah.
Is what that is if you're a Christian.
In the opposite, we see in the Bible, we see God's kindness leads us to repentance.
That's right.
It's not a sword to our neck. It's his love for us.
That's good. That's really, really good. Well, and it's interesting the neck keeps coming up because one of the chief mechanisms of coercion is the threat of beheading.
Right.
So one of the reasons that beheading is the chosen instrument of Muslims to kill others and decapitate them really comes also from the Quran.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was a couple episodes ago. It was Gabriel. He was choking out Muhammad.
Yeah, he was choking Muhammad to get him to conform. So the same kind of thing: coercion through violence and threats and intimidation.
Exactly. Okay. One more. It's in chapter 47, verse 4. So when you meet those who disbelieve in battle, strike their necks until when you have inflicted slaughter upon them, then secure their bonds and either confer favor afterwards. Or ransom them until the war lays down its burdens.
Okay, hold on for a second.
Yeah.
So cut their neck. So this is the decapitation, the beheading. Slaughter them, take their stuff, or ransom them until the other side lays down their burdens. Hostages. This is exactly what's happening overseas. They're taking a simple page out of the Quran and just doing it.
Yep.
That's what's happening here.
Yep.
That is the command, is where you continue. Yeah.
That is the command. And if Allah had willed, he could have taken vengeance upon them himself, but he ordered armed struggle to test some of you by means of others, and those who are killed in the cause of Allah, never will waste their deeds.
So God could have done it himself, but he chose you to kill them. So you're the instruments of vengeance and judgment for Allah to those who disbelieve and won't yield to him.
Yep. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, it's like the media posts you see today. It's like mostly peaceful protests when the store's on fire. It's like, no, there's no peace at all.
Right. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, and so what happens though is that those who engage in this jihad, which is considered to be the lesser form, not according to the Quran. Mm-hmm. In chapter 37 of the Quran, let me read this. Here's their description of paradise. This is the promise for jihadists: fruits, women, and stuff. Ready? Okay, quote. Indeed, you disbelievers will be tasters of painful punishment, and you will not be recompensed except for what you used to do. But not the chosen servants of Allah. Those will have a provision determined. Fruits. They will be honored in gardens of pleasure, on thrones facing one another. There will be circulated among them a cup from a flowing spring, white and delicious to the drinkers. No bad effect is there in it, nor from it will they be intoxicated. And with them will be women limiting their glances with large eyes, as if they were eggs well protected. So what that means, the Quran is teaching, and you have some of the other ancillary books that affirm and comment on this, is that anybody who dies in jihad, spreading Islam, they will have eternal sex with 72 black-eyed virgins on green carpets from which they emerge from their thrones, where they eat endless food and a wine that never intoxicates them. Now, what do? If you take young, hungry, impoverished men filled with lust and rage, and tell them in the power of God they can travel to foreign lands, unleash their pent-up desires, and remove for sure any potential of eternal hell in the life to come, you have the makings of a terrorist. Mm-hmm. That's exactly what this is. Mm-hmm. In fact, one more here in the Quran. Indeed, Allah has purchased from the believers their lives and their properties. For that, they will have paradise. They fight in the cause of Allah, so they kill and are killed. That's in chapter 9, 111. 9111. 9/11, 2001, that's no accident.
Yeah.
That's the reason that was put there. So their goal, you understand, is to establish Sharia law. This is how they view the world. They view the world this way. And it's helpful to understand that they view the world in terms of realms. They want to see these realms, these regions of the world under Islamic law, and then they see those that are not under Islamic law. So they see really the world in two categories. Those who are submitted to Allah, those who are not. Those who are not need to be submitted. That's our goal, that those who are submitted will submit those who are not. In fact, Robert Spencer, who's got some resources that I highly recommend that you grab hold of. He's got some stuff. In fact, the Complete Infidel's Guide to ISIS is a great resource as well to kind of break down some of these things. Even though we're talking about Hamas, ISIS, the same collective playbook, just in different regions. He says this, quote, Islam has divided the world into Islamic and non-Islamic realms. The Dar al-Islam, which is the realm of Islam, is the portion of the world under Islamic rule. And God's intent, according to Islam, is that the Dar al-Assam should expand until it includes the entire world so that all people live according to God's plan and law. The Dar al-Harb, that's the realm of war. So you see, you have two realms, the realm of Islam and the realm of war. It's that portion of the world that's not under Islamic rule. So God commands Muslims to bring all peoples into Islam. Sometimes there's a third category. They call it the Dar el-Sul, the realm of truce. It's the portion of the world that exists in a treaty relationship with the Dar el-Islam, but isn't presently under Islamic rule. So if you are at least friendly to, not combative or opposed to, there is some sort of truce relationship that you can have with Islamists, but ultimately they're going to win you over. So then the question becomes, what do we mean by Islamic law? Like, what does it look like? When you see what they want it to look like, what would America look like? What do they want the world to look like? Now, again, we're going to quote from the Quran here. In fact, I'll let you do this here from chapter 5. This isn't the radical groups. This is just the Quran. This is what they want the world to look like.
Yeah. In chapter 5, verses 33 and 34, it says, Indeed, the penalty for those who wage war against Allah and his messenger and strive upon earth, corruption is none but that they be killed or crucified, or that their hands and feet be cut off from opposite sides, or that they be exiled from the land.
Read that last phrase. Or they be exiled
from
land.
the land.
Okay, keep going.
That is for them a disgrace in this world, and for them in the hereafter is a great punishment, except for those who return before you apprehend them, and know that Allah is forgiving and merciful.
So anyone who fights against Islam? So that's what's interesting here. When you have U.S. bombing portions of Syria, or you have Israel fighting in these other countries, as soon as you have any kind of militarized action against a region that is under Islamic law, that activates all the Muslims who fill that population to come kill you, crucify you, cut your hands and feet off, or drive you out of your land. So they would love us to be crucified, decapitated, dismembered, or just driven out of America.
Yeah. But don't forget, he's forgiving and merciful.
Right. I forgot that part. Go ahead. Let's talk about blasphemy. The Muslims have a description of blasphemy that's described in the Quran. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's also punishable by death. It says, if they violate their oaths after pledging to keep their covenants and attack your religion, you may fight the leaders of paganism. You are no longer bound by your covenant with them, that they may refrain. And that's in chapter 9, verse 12.
Yeah, well, so that's interesting because what they're talking about here is you might make a relational treaty with somebody, some oath, some pledge, but you can break it. You're no longer bound by that relationship. But blasphemy covers a number of things. Blasphemy can include converting to Christianity from Islam, or disparaging Muhammad or the Quran. So you've seen some of these incidents where like a teacher will put up a comic in a class in a university of Islam, end up dead, stabbed to death, either in class or outside of class.
Yeah.
They believe they have an allegiance to Allah to kill anybody who disrespects the Quran or Muhammad. So now what about those who turn away from Islam? Let me read what the Quran says in chapter 4. They wish you would disbelieve as they disbelieved, so you would be alike. So do not take from among them allies until they emigrate for the cause of Allah. But if they turn away, then seize them and kill them wherever you find them, and take not from among them any ally or helper. You know what that is? If you try to evangelize a Muslim and call them away from Islam, not only is the person who converts worthy of death, but the converter.
Yeah.
That's why people who go to missionaries to heavily Islamic populated countries are really taking their life into their own hands. They're putting their life in God's hands, of course, but they really are flying in the face of what the Quran says in chapter 4, verse 89.
Right. And we should totally acknowledge the faith of not only the people that go to evangelize to Muslims, but the Muslims that convert to Christianity. Because imagine being a Muslim, knowing what the Quran teaches, reading this, and to turn away from that, knowing that when you become a Christian, you could instantly be killed by the people that say they love you.
By your family, even.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, there's lesser penalties too. And we don't need to go through all these, but the hand of the thief, if you steal in a Muslim country, you get your hand cut off. That's in chapter 5, verse 38. If you slander, you get 80 lashes. That's chapter 24, verse 4. If you get caught spying for or otherwise aiding and abetting somebody who's not a believer, you would be put to death. This is the literal teaching of the Quran. And so what you're seeing today is not extreme. It's not the lunatic fringe. It's the most fastidious, loyal, and faithful adherence to the most basic teaching of the Quran. It is by and large, if you see a peaceful Muslim, they're not a very good Muslim.
Right.
They're like a liberal, Muslim. But herein lies the difference between biblical Christianity and Islam. So now we know that this is satanic. We know that this is a spiritual war. We know that the Bible says that the weapons of our warfare aren't fleshly, like 2 Corinthians 10 says. This is a war that has to be, in the language of Romans 13, put down from a punish the evildoers perspective. It is just and right for someone who has concocted a way to steal what you have, kill you, to overrule and dominate you, the very definition of evil that they say is the very definition of love and the very will of Allah. To take that, we are responsible to restrain evil. That's what Romans 13 says. Now, for our nation to engage in a just war, or for Israel that matter, I mean, how puny and underwhelming is it for me to say this? They have a right to defend themselves against this. As anyone would. But in Christianity, we understand that while the civil authorities, whether they're local, national, or whatever, have a right to repel this through whatever means necessary, we understand the only way for a Muslim to truly forsake all of this is by the truth of the gospel, to rescue men's minds from the disobedient realities of unbelief, not with swords, bombs, RPGs, or machetes, but by the weapon of our warfare, which is the gospel. And never has there been a need like in our day right now to be clear about this. But I'll tell you this, what's interesting is what Islam wants to do going forward now is establish what's called the Islamic State. Now you have ISIS and ISIL, and you have all these different places where the Islamic State is established as being under Sharia law. Let me tell you what's in their playbook. Let me tell you where this is going and what they ultimately want to do. It began in the Middle East in the 90s, and the goal, and this is so fascinating, was to overthrow the secular Arab governments. So those governments that had wandered away from fundamental Islam needed to be restored to Islamic law. And that's why you see them waving the black flag as they're waging war or jihad. They're simply asking people to return to Islam and the traditions of Muhammad in their purest form. Now, again, the Islamic State, this is Spencer, he says, it is the wealthiest, most successful, and most dangerous terror group in the world. And this is why you find very oil-rich countries who are funding these terrorists. They're pouring their money into it. Their form of jihad is sending in the suicide bombers, to send in the killers. And this goes back to what you saw with Zarqawi and bin Laden after 9/11. But you find that there is constantly this dependence upon the example of Muhammad as the basis for which they conduct all of this. Let me tell you, for example, he was put down, but Zarqawi back then, he even said, is it not time for you Muslims to take the path of jihad and carry the sword of the prophet of prophets? The prophet, the most merciful, ordered his army to strike the necks of some prisoners in the battles to kill them, and he set a good example for us. That phrase is what's constantly in their mind that they are trying to establish a geographic region that is a Muslim territory under Islamic control. And then watch this. They want that to be the base of operations for the further spread of Islam throughout the world. That's what this is. We conquer a territory in order to establish a beachhead from which we launch new attacks and spread. And this is a very well-organized group. There's the Caliph, there's the deputies, there's the war ministers, senior military commanders, the director of military operations, finance ministers, security, governors, chief spokesman, media operations. I mean, they have everything that a well-oiled machine has. But let me tell you what their to-do list is. In 2015, the Islamic State released a book titled Black Flags from Rome. This is interesting, and it details their plans for world conquest. So if you want to know what they're after, what playbook they're reading, what they're trying to do, they told us in their titles: Black Flags from Rome, Black Flags from the East, Black Flags from Syria, Arabia, Persia. These are all ebooks that you could download, and they detail why and how the various areas where these caliphs are established and where they are on the chopping block to be conquered by the Islamic State. So they want to establish Muslim areas outside of its domains with, listen, two of its most formidable foes. They want Saudi Arabia and they want Iran. So they want Iran to be all in on this ISIS or this Islamic State, which that in our current time is very much happening. And they want Saudi Arabia, which right now is friendly to Israel. And you remember the attacks were made as they were beginning to broker peace. So this was designed, and the after effect of that, remember, Saudi Arabia then started creating alliances with Iran. So what's interesting here is they're after what they've stated that they're after, all along. Now, listen, this is what they said. This is what one of their chief spokesmen, Abu Muhammad al-Adnani said. He said, we want, quote, Allah willing, Paris before Rome, and before Spain, and after that, we will blacken your life and blow up your White House, Big Ben, the Eiffel Tower. Allah willing, we want Kabul, Karachi, and the Caucasus, which is the regions including Azerbaijan and Georgia, which recently was acquired by Russia. They want Iran. They want the capital of Saudi Arabia. They want Tehran. We want Baghdad, Damascus, Jerusalem, Cairo, the capital of Yemen, the capital of Qatar. They want Abu Dhabi, the capital of the United Arab Emirates. They want the capital of Jordan, Amman. And they want to establish those as the caliphates where they'll now have the beachhead to launch. So Israel, now understand, is on their list, but it's not the only thing on their list. Now, going back to the Bible from Genesis onward, from Genesis 4 really onward, or Genesis 3, all the way to the end of the book of Revelation and the Battle of Armageddon, you have this conflict in Israel and for Israel, but they want so much more. They want the world. They don't just want this little strip of real estate.
It seems like they're trying to take down everything.
Yeah. And they won't stop until they have. So global domination. So they want America. They want to blow it up. But above all, they want to undo our ability to protect those places where we have strong and strategic allies. So nothing short of absolute conquest and total global domination. Okay, now let's finish with this. They have 5 strategies. Okay. Strategy number 1 is to infiltrate by whatever means possible. And this is what they say. Now, watch this. This is so important. Now, think about this. We live in a border state, so think about how important this is. In their pamphlets, the Islamic State details their strategy in 3 waves. Number 1, ready? Immigration. Go to the places where there is open access, where military-aged men right now coming across our border who are fighting age and size come in and they wage war, ultimately, but they're not called to come in and then wage war. It's first immigrate. And then they tell them, quote, be satisfied with a basic living. Don't offend people. Be grateful to them for giving you a job. Be grateful for them providing for you a home to live in and a mosque to pray in. Now, this is wherever you go. They especially, by the way, for a reason I'll show you in a minute, want them to happen in Europe. So you have this massive immigration into Europe, this big flight from Africa and all these countries. They want to saturate and get it. So immigration, number 1. Now, second, what they want to do is that their families would become rich, become high-ranking in their jobs so that they could support other Muslims back home. And then third, a new generation would study the life of Allah, Muhammad, and then begin to infiltrate into wherever they are. So migrate, be grateful where you live, don't make an issue, move up the ranks financially and politically, and gain a greater awareness of the teaching of Islam. So get a place of influence where you appear to be peaceful, you appear to be grateful, but listen, you have to be very patient. So sleeper cells is what this is called. They also believe, this is fascinating, that jihad includes having children. So have many, many children. So that's a very appealing form of jihad,
Right.
have lots of kids.
Yeah, they're just trying to populate their army.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Now, what's interesting, the demographic of any major country, most families would have maybe max 3 kids. Now, a family of mine who has 5, that's different, but Muslim families sometimes have 8, 10, or 12 children. So it's just takeover by attrition, takeover by these families being outnumbered by these families.
Yeah, it's just a numbers game for them.
Yeah, this is jihad by reproduction.
Yep.
But then what happens is if you're in those places that are democratic, you know what you are? More in control of the outcome of a vote because you have more people voting. So the goal is to fit in, don't draw attention to yourself. And they even say to lie or mislead those who would suspect you because it's war. They justify lying because that's what you do in wartime. Again, Robert Spencer, he says this, deceiving non-Muslims isn't forbidden in Islam. In fact, in some circumstances, it's a religious duty. And he quotes the Quran, chapter 3, verse 28, that says believers should not take unbelievers as friends or helpers, quote, except when taking precaution against them in prudence. This is the foundation of the idea that believers may legitimately deceive unbelievers if they're under pressure. So again, you have this survive in the West, and there's so many books that you can read, and there's so many things, but the goal is to infiltrate, get jobs, fill society, do your normal duty, and then study the Quran, study the Quran, study the Quran. Why? Because the Quran is not unclear as to what you should do when activated. Okay, that's their first step. The second step is establish Sharia law. Now, again, if you have the democracy, you can do that. Mm-hmm. You can vote into power people that you want. You can enact legislation that actually trends towards Sharia law. There is a drive to take more than just the political posture of violence and by force. It's literally saying that if you can do this, if you can establish Sharia law, and I'll read to you the page out of their playbook in just a second, then you can actually, enjoy the spoils of victory. So if you establish Sharia law, you can take over whatever you want. Let me read this. This is coming from Spencer again, who's quoting from the ISIS playbook. He says this, those who dare, and by the way, this is taken from something in December 2014. The ISIS, they issued a list of rules for Christians living in the Islamic State's de facto capital of Raqqa, Syria. Those who dare disobey risk calling down on themselves the full force of the Islamic State's brutal enforcement mechanisms. As inhabitants of that tortured city are well aware, accustomed as they become to public beheadings and crucifixion. So let me just behead somebody in your public square to teach you this could be you if you cross us, right? The torture of women who are found insufficiently covered or breastfeeding in public, the stoning of homosexuals, that is if they survive being thrown from rooftops, and we've seen videos of that. Christians are forbidden to worship in public or to build or repair churches. They're not allowed to pray where Muslims can hear them. They can't display a cross. They can't ring bells. They're not allowed to prevent anyone from converting to Islam, and they must not aid the state's Islamic enemies. One more thing, though, is absolutely forbidden in the capital of an Islamic state. You cannot in any way mock Muslims or Islam. So what happens now is once you've established Islamic law, to further motivate you in your overthrowing, you can actually enjoy the spoils of victory, meaning specifically, you can take anything you want from the place that you conquered. There's videos, all this, that they've even urged Muslims in the places they conquer to set up a slave market where you'll actually be able to buy and sell American wives and children. And if that's what you do, you know how the Quran limits you to 4 wives?
Yeah.
Well, if they're not wives, but they're slaves, you can take as many as you want.
Really?
Yeah. So it's just take these women on the slave market, because now she's considered property. And then they ask this question, why should the immoral, indulgent, unworthy Americans have all the wealth? Now you can go, they promote this stuff on Facebook. They're using platforms like Facebook to claim America back. They call it Fed Up, Stand Up, Rescue, and Reclaim America Back. Now, the third strategy, and let's just move through this because this is depressing, right? Let's get to some reality here.
Yeah.
They want to weaken the West. So they urge them to go into nations that are poorer and infiltrate because they don't put up as much of a fight. Organizations in America, such as the CIA, the FBI, what they say is those organizations will continue to exist, but they're not going to have the manpower to analyze everything. They're going to be overwhelmed, overrun, and especially what they want is lone wolf attacks because you can't trace down without great difficulty the lone wolf to find any kind of coordination that you can stop. But the goal is just to weaken the West. You saw that when they barraged Israel with rockets that wanted to overwhelm the Iron Dome and then strike from every angle that you can find. But they want these attacks to continue. And they want people like Russia to take advantage of it, which is interesting because if you weaken these other places and Russia advances on them, they take over. This whole thing is to weaken the West. That's what they want to do. And the weaker Europe becomes and the more territory Russia occupies, eventually they'll become aware of what's happening and desperate for help. According to Islamic prophecy, they're going to ask the Muslims to join them in fighting, and this is going to give them free reign over Europe. So in other words, the more that Russia takes over Europe, the more that the Muslims in Europe will be called on by Europe to step up and activate in the fight, which means we're entrusting our military authority to the Muslims. Okay, number 4, their main goal, ready? Conquer Rome. Conquer Rome. While they want Israel, and we know that that's what they're going for, the Islamic State currently, well, they want to take out Paris, they want to take out Israel, they want to take out America, all of that. The Muslim state, the Islamic State, wants desperately to hit Rome. Their main target is Rome. And specifically, the reason why is because that's what Muhammad set his heart on conquering when he died. So Muhammad's big push was that Rome would be overthrown, and he died planning that. And so because they follow those ancient ideals, they still have their eyes on Rome. In fact, if you were to read that ebook, Black Flags from Rome, I have a copy in my Kindle, you'd see photographs of the Colosseum, Roman landmarks. In fact, the book starts with a twisted kind of tourist manual where jihadists go sightseeing in Rome. But listen, they're not going to be armed with cameras and maps. The photographs are included so that once the jihadists do arrive, they know where to go with their sledgehammers and drills. So they're taking pictures that look like a tour guide. They're actually a map of what to destroy. They want to overthrow Rome. And so they even published in April 2015 a pamphlet that said this: we are on your streets and we are locating targets. And so you know what their favorite tool is? It's Google Earth.
Really?
What that means is they're sitting on Google Earth on the internet, looking at all the places that they would conquer and creating this covetous lust in their hearts for the places that they'll either destroy with their violence or occupy. Like they're looking at your house going, I'd love to live in that house. I'd love to be watching your TV and I'd love to be sleeping with your wife who's my slave.
This is a religion that takes the sinful, evil desires of the flesh and promises all of those.
All of them. Which is highly motivating.
Right.
Anger, wrath, vengeance, lust, greed, covetousness, all in the name of Allah.
Yeah. And if they're promised that, if they do these things, they'll get heaven and more of their sinful desires, of course they're going to go into it, right?
Right. So if I die in jihad, I go to heaven perfect, lust-filled forever. If I don't die in jihad, I get to fulfill the same desires and gratify them here and now.
Right.
So what's not to love?
Right.
Unless you are, it's satanic.
Yep.
The enemies come to steal, kill, and destroy.
Right.
We know that.
Yeah.
Okay, last thing. And this really is fascinating. It fits with where we're going in our church's study of the book of Revelation. They believe that they will, once they take Rome, listen, they believe that the rest of the European, states will retaliate, countries, they'll retaliate, and then they'll march to Israel for a final battle. So once they take Rome, everything's going to drive to Israel. And they're going to gather in northern Syria, which is right now very much a flashpoint of conflict with the battle in Israel. And there's a certain town in northern Syria that they believe, because Muhammad predicted it, that it will be the final site of the battle between believers and unbelievers. And then once Europe is in Syria, engaged in an all-out war on Islam, which they want so bad to trigger a war. They want so bad for Muslims to unite. They want so bad for this war to go down because, listen, once they take the war to northern Israel, their Messiah, the Mahdi, will arrive. So they believe if they can provoke enough of a conflict, the 12th Imam will appear. Remember the guy who died in 873 BC or 873 AD as a child, but is going to return? They believe he's invisibly hiding, waiting for this moment to happen. And when this moment happens, when they take the border of Syria and Israel, I've stood in that very spot. When they take that place and now the war is in Israel, the Mahdi, the 12th Imam, will appear. And he will establish global Islamic conquest. And he will, fight and lead the great battle of Armageddon. That's what Muslims believe, which matches exactly what the Bible says is going to happen in the end. So I personally believe that the Antichrist will be this figure that they identify as the 12th Imam, the Mahdi. And not only that, they believe that the Mahdi will lead the Muslims to victory, but then they believe that the Christian Jesus will appear in a fight against the Muslims, and the 12th Imam won't be able to defeat him. So this is what they say about the Jesus that we're going to, we're calling out, and it's going to fight against him, right? They say the Christian Jesus will be blind in one eye. He'll travel at fast speeds on a donkey. I've never seen a fast donkey. He'll exercise power with which he intends to deceive Muslims. And he has a name written on his forehead that only faithful Muslims can recognize. It's the actual Arabic word for infidel. That he'll enter every town in the world to deceive the inhabitants. And then he's going to realize that the Muslim Messiah, the Mahdi, he's actually going to be trapped in Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion airport. This is what they believe.
Really?
Yeah. And that's when they believe the real Jesus will appear. So you see what's happening? You have all the armies of the world converging on Israel. You have the Mahdi leading the battle to defeat and take over Israel in the valley of Megiddo at Armageddon. That our Jesus, the blind in one eye, super fast on a donkey Jesus, will trap the Imam in the Ben Gurion airport, and then the real Jesus will come and rescue him. And that real Jesus will, as they describe him as the prophet of Islam, he'll help the Mahdi by defeating the Christian Jesus and defeat the enemies of Allah. So this is exactly what you see in the book of Revelation with the Antichrist and the false prophet. And remember even Jesus' words when he talked about the end times, he said, some people will say that's the Christ, do not believe him, right? This fits parallel. You could lay this over top of the Bible's eschatology, but they believe that Jesus, he'll be a man of medium height. His skin is reddish fair, wearing 2 light yellow garments, looking as if drops were falling down from his head, though it won't be wet. He'll fight the people for the cause of Islam. He will break the cross, kill swine. He'll abolish taxes on unbelievers because there'll be no unbelievers. He'll kill them all. And Allah will perish all religions except Islam. He will destroy the Antichrist, live on earth for 40 years, and then he'll die. And Muslims will pray over him. This is wild. So he's going to die after 40 years, be buried next to Muhammad, rise again on Judgment Day as a testimony against Christians and all else who opposed Islam. So again, you have this wild eschatological belief. Listen, once they conquer Rome, drive everything to Israel, trigger the return of the Mahdi emerges, our Jesus emerges. Our Jesus fights against the true Jesus. The true Jesus kills him, and he establishes global Islamic Sharia law. This is unfortunately for Muslims not the way it truly ends. The Antichrist and his false prophet are the first ones who'll be thrown into the lake of fire. The real Jesus will not be defeated. He will set up his rule and reign from Jerusalem on the throne of David. He will deliver his people, Israel, and he will rule and reign with a rod of iron, putting down sin, putting down judgment, and rule and reign over all things. But here's the big question. Let's maybe end with this. How can you fight a people who look down the barrel of a gun and see paradise? That's the problem. When you point a gun at them, what they see is what they've been waiting for. The entrance into an eternity of lust-filled gratification with every desire that they've been denied on this earth now available to them. with full, unrestrained, unlimited access. So what do you do? Well, you have to give those governments who are willing, courageously, and able to put down this evil, to number one, recognize it as evil, not make a place for it to coexist, not call it peaceful, but to actually put down, restrain, punish, and even destroy this ideology. Because the problem's not the people. The problem's the people who believe in ideology. But you also understand that you can't do that with guns. You do that with the gospel. So you got guns and gospel. You have to punish and restrain, even to the point of use of lethal force, the evildoer from spreading this evil, because this isn't going away from the earth. But number two, you got to preach the gospel. You got to preach the gospel. You have to make Christ known. You have to preach the message of the cross. Now, I think what that tells us, as the world becomes increasingly populated with Muslims, that persecution is going to be the normal Christian experience.
Yeah.
What you see in the book of Acts is, and we're studying the book of Acts right now, is that this is the normal reality. When you have the LGBTQ agenda pervasive in our country, you have the removal of gender distinctions, you have universities losing their tax-exempt status if they discriminate towards anyone.
The genocide of unborn babies.
Absolutely. All of the evils. Yeah. Like if you kill a baby in the womb, how will you stand up to this ideology? I mean, it's free for all.
Right.
There's no line anymore.
Yeah.
You have to be tolerant of everything.
Right. And all this too, it's not to put fear into you guys or into us. It's so that we can prepare, right? We need to have the resources. We need to sharpen our sword, spiritually speaking, and get ready for battle that's about to come. Yeah,
that's exactly right. Well, and if you're in a country that murders children in the womb, you are yourself a terrorist.
Yep.
Yeah, you have this reality. Like we look at I think they said, Hamas killed 20 babies, less than 15 minutes. That's happened in our country. Hamas is Planned Parenthood Junior.
Yeah.
Well, we got nothing. They got nothing on.
What is it like
us.
Since the overturn of Roe v. Wade back in like I don't remember what year, but 60 million abortions since then?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, 60 million abortions since Roe v. Wade. Right. Over 60 million. Not since it was overturned.
Right.
But 60 million children. Don't think for a minute that if our culture and our government don't protect a baby in the safest place of all, the mother's womb, that it's going to run to our aid as Christians when persecution intensifies.
Yeah.
So our hope is not in our political leaders. Democracy cannot be separated from depravity. But to your point, courage comes from being faithful to God and his word and being strengthened by God, and to even be willing to not be made soft and to stand firm. But, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say at the end here that God loves to save terrorists. Can you think of any terrorists in the New Testament who, they struck fear into the hearts of people, imprisoned them, intimidated them, beat them, or killed them? Can you think of anybody?
Sounds a lot like Paul right there.
Yeah, exactly. Like, nobody is so far gone. Like if God can save that terrorist, he can save anybody.
Yeah.
He can save me. He can save you. And you know what that guy prayed in Romans 9? I wish it was possible somehow to give up my salvation for the people who are trying to now do that to me. And so don't view, now what we don't want to do is say, look at every Muslim and think that's Hamas. Look at that person as an image bearer who needs Christ.
Yeah.
Probably the hardest thing for Muslims to do is to let you into their life. And so one of the things that Christians are going to be challenged with is, how do I let a Muslim into my life? How do I pull them into my life? How do I model Christ to them? How do I speak truth to them and love them? How do I show them, even through hospitality? One of the most effective means that missionaries to the Muslims have found is that by opening up your home and letting them into your home, not so that they can preview what they want to own from you, but so that you can actually model Christ to them, to take time to answer their questions and remove their barriers. This is a fast-growing religion and it's a slow conversion rate. So, this is going to be us going against the tide. But remember, they look at Christians not as Christians really are. They look at Christians like Britney Spears, because they say that America calls itself a Christian nation, but they kill all these babies. American calls themselves Christian nation, but look at TikTok. Look at whatever defiling site that's pumped out of like the sex industry here in our country, the immorality, our movies. Like, if this is what a Christian nation is, you understand what they're reacting to is a version of Christianity that isn't Christianity.
Yeah.
And so we have to show them they're wrong in our view of God. It's not the Father, Mary, and the Son. They have a wrong view of sin. It's not forgetfulness. It's disobedience to a holy God. And to remember, and I think this is maybe the most practical thing, they have no power over their own sin, and they have no assurance of heaven. And so the ability to show that there is a place where God will save them, that they can go. There is a reality that's available for them. Muslims have to understand this, that if they don't have a good enough works by doing jihad, that they really have to save themselves. If not, this is what they believe hell is, quote, a hot place with scorching wind where the skin is burned black and then replaced with new skin fit for burning forever and no hope of a savior. They have no hope, they have no salvation, they have no sense of being made in the image of God, and they have no category for grace. And so you find now that there is a way to model and speak to their misconceptions in a life that they can look at long enough to see the difference that the gospel is not what they thought it was. So when you have people coming into our country from those places, the world's literally coming to us. And he's actually pushing unsaved Muslims out of dark countries right now and forcing them to consider whether they believe what Islam teaches because of what Islam has done to them. And so that actually may even make them right for the gospel. So all that to say, man, we need more than ever to live holy lives. We need more than ever to be faithful to the gospel. We need more than ever to be clear on what the Bible teaches, and to be compelling by our lives that, I mean, ultimately the results are up to God. We know how it really ends. It's not with the trigger of, a Mahdi, although that's probably how it'll unfold. We know that Jesus wins.
Right.
And we know that when he's coming again in glory, he will set up his rule and reign, and he will exalt himself over all. And the weapons of our warfare right now are, let's leave the military to do their job, to do what they do well. But let's let our work be that of faithful gospel proclamation, both preaching it and living it for his glory.
Yeah. And when you asked the question, how can you fight at people who look down the barrel of a gun and see paradise? I was wondering whether that was meant for the Muslim or for the Christian, because I think we could also say that for the Christian, right?
Wow,
we have that assurance and hope that we've been forgiven, that we're looking down the barrel of a gun. If we have a sword to our throat, we know that that pain is for a moment, but the second after that, we are in glory. We are in paradise with our Father. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us on this special series of Islam and the Gospel. We hope this encourages you, and we hope to see you on the next episode.